Today we are doing more about linear functions, which is section 2.4. And we're going to start off learning another form of an equation, which is called point-slope form. And you all may remember this from geometry. So it's y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. And just like the name says, this form is good when you want to know the slope of a line and a point that actually passes through through that line. So the x1 and the y1 represent the point. X1 and y1. And so that's your point. And then, of course, M represents your slope. So if they give you or they tell you that a line passes through a certain point and they give you the slope, the point-slope form helps you. So for example, if they give us the point -5, 2, and they tell us that the slope is 3/5, and they want the equation of the line, then you would write it like this. This will be x1, and this is y1. So it'll be y minus 2. And if you notice, here again, here's my x1 and y1, and this is m. So labeling helps you to plug everything in. And so my equation will be y plus 1 equals -3, in parentheses x minus 7. And notice that -1 became positive because of the formula. Now what happens if they ask you to write an equation and they give you 2 points? For example, 3, 2, and 5, 8. So the first thing you want to do is find the slope, because you need a slope. So we're going to use our slope formula. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And you're going to get 6 over 2, which is equal to 3. Now, because we only have the slope and we have 2 points, you get to choose which one that you want to be x1 and y1. So I'm going to choose the first set, and it doesn't matter. And so I have x1, y1, and I have m. So I'm going to use my point slope formula, and I always write it because that helps me, so I'll know where to plug everything in. So we have y minus 2 equals 3, x minus 3. Now that is what we would call point slope. I'm going to call it PS. Let's say they wanted us to go to slope-intercept. Well, to go to slope-intercept, we would take things further and distribute this 3. And so we would get 3x minus 9. And then getting y by itself, being added 2 to both sides, you're going to get 3x minus 7. So this would be slope-intercept. Slope-intercept makes it easier for us to graph it. Point slope makes it easier for us to interpret it. So you have to read the directions to see if they want you to go to point slope. But now that we're in Algebra 2, honors, sometimes we may ask you to go to slope intercept. So now I'm going to give you one to try. Okay, for the got it, it says a line passes through -5, 0, and 0, 7. What is the equation of the line in point slope form and slope intercept form? So pause the video and see if you can get it. Okay, first thing I did was find the slope of the 2 points, which was 7/5. And then I used point slope and I chose the first point again. And remember, it doesn't matter. So on the quiz, I would take both if someone use -5, 0, or if someone used 0, 7. And then I kept going to get it into slope intercept form. And there you have it. Our next equation is standard form, which is ax plus by equals c. And we want to make sure that all of our coefficients are integers. So that means no fractions, no decimals. So they're going to give you an equation and ask you to write it in standard form. And of course, they're going to give you one with fractions or decimals just to see. And what I do is, as soon as I see a fraction, I want to get rid of it. So looking at your denominators, your least common denominator is 4. So I do 4y, multiplying everything by 4. 4 times 3/4, that's 12/4, which is 3x. And 4 times -5, which is -20. Now when you get here, if you notice, the ax needs to be on the same side as the by. So we're going to have to move this over, and you do it by subtracting. So you're going to get -3x plus 4y equals -20. Now, some books have you to get rid of this negative, but if you do, you will have to do the entire row by -1. So it'll look like 3x minus 4y would give you +20. But either one of these answers would be correct. Now, the got it for this one is a little challenging because this one it has a lot of decimals. And we can do this one together. Now, the best thing to do, since they all are in the 10th place, is to multiply everything by 10, because that'll help you get rid of it. So that'll give us 10y equals 91x plus 36. Now, you stop the video, you can finish from here. So, moving everything over, you can have -91x plus 10y equals 36. Or, if you don't like your ax term to be negative, you can make it 91x minus 10y equals -36. So either one of those answers is correct. Okay, graphing equations using intercepts. Sometimes our equations are easier to graph if we use what we call x and y intercepts. So for instance, if I had 3x plus 5y equals 15, and if we notice 3 and 5 are both factors of 15, which makes using it this way, using this method makes it much easier. So to find a x-intercept, remember that's where your graph hits the x-axis. So that means that your value of y is 0. Let me write this neater. So I will make the y 0. So we'll get 3x equals 15. So x equals 5. So that ordered pair would be 5, 0. And then y-intercepts are where your graph hits the y-axis. And that means the value of x now is 0. And then you would solve for y. So y would be 3. So this ordered pair would be 0, 3. And like I stated earlier, if the coefficients are factors of your C term, it makes it much easier. So we have 5, 0. So that's your x-intercept. And then you have 0, 3. And that's your y-intercept. And you connect those. And that would be your graph. Okay. Your guided problem is what are the intercepts of 2x minus 4y equals 8? And then graph the equation. So pause the video and try it, and then we'll compare our answers. Okay, so I found my x-intercept by making y 0. And I solved for x and got x equals 4. So that ordered pair was 4, 0. And then my y-intercept, I plug in 0 for x, solve for y, and I got 0, negative 2. And I plotted those 2 points, and there's my graph. Our last concept deals with writing equations of parallel and perpendicular lines. And if you remember from geometry, parallel lines have the same slope. And I'll just write and perpendicular lines, their slopes are opposite reciprocals. So opposite my pen is not cooperating. Reciprocals. So when they ask you to write the equation of the line, you have to make sure that you look at the slope of the line that's given to you. For example, let's say they wanted a line that was parallel to y equals 6x minus 2, and that passes through the point 1, negative 3. So the only thing that we want to pay attention to in this equation is their slope. Because remember, parallel means that we're going to use the exact same slope, which in this case is 6. And then we have x1 and y1, and that would be our point. So what equation uses a slope and a point? Of course, that would be point slope. So with point slope, if you remember, we have y minus y1 equals m x minus x1. So plugging everything in, we have y minus a negative makes it plus 3 equals 6 times x minus 1. That would be point slope. I'm going to go through all of them so we can understand the different forms. Let's go to slope-intercept. That means we would have to keep going with distributing. Y plus 3 equals 6x minus 6. Then you get the y by itself by subtracting 3 from both sides. So you get 6x minus 9. That would be slope-intercept, which is what most times where we would stop. And let's say we wanted to go even further to get to standard form. remember we would move this over. So we would get negative 6x plus y equals negative 9. Or, if we didn't want any of the negatives, our coefficient to be negative, 6x minus y equals positive 9. So that would be standard form. So there we reviewed all three forms. Let's try a perpendicular. Okay, remember, and the good thing about these equations, they're already in slope-intercept form, so we can see the slope. So since it says perpendicular, we want to pay attention only to their slope. Now, if they want perpendicular, remember we need the opposite reciprocal. Opposite meaning since theirs is negative, our slope is going to be positive. And if their slope is 4, our slope has to be the reciprocal, which is 1/4. And we already have x1 and y1. So let's pull out our formula again. Our point slope, because that's the one that we have to start with because of what they gave us. So I'm just going to plug everything in. Y minus 5 equals 1/4 x minus 8. Remember that's point slope. And I'm going to do all three again. So I'm going to keep going for distributing. That's 1/4 x minus 1/4 of 8, or 8/4, is 2. Add 5 to both sides. So that'll be slope-intercept form. And to keep going to the standard form, remember there's that fraction, so you want to multiply everything by 4. So now 1/4 of 4 is 1. And then don't forget 4 times 3, which is 12. And so that means we'll get, move this x over, negative x plus 4y equals 12, or x minus 4y equals negative 12. And there we have it. So now I want you to try, and I want you to try all three forms, and let's see what you get. Okay, here's your got it problem. I gave you two, one parallel and one perpendicular, and try all forms, and then pause the video and we'll compare our answers. Okay, this one might have taken a while. So for A, I don't know if anyone noticed, but it was hard to see the slope in the form that they gave us because they gave it to us in standard form. And the disadvantage about standard form, you can't really see the slope. But if you got y by itself and put it in slope-intercept form, then you would have noticed that the slope was negative 2. Since they said parallel, we needed the same exact slope. And they gave us the point. So first I did point slope. And then I converted it to slope-intercept. And then I went to standard form. And then for part B, this one was already ready, but we wanted perpendicular. So if you notice, their slope was 2/3. We needed negative 3/2. So I put it in point slope using the 0.06. Then I went to slope-intercept. And then for standard form, you notice the denominator was 2. So I multiply everything by 2. The y, the negative 3/2, and the 6. And I got 2y equals negative 3x plus 12. And I moved everything over, and that's how I got my standard form. Now remember, you only have to do those forms when they ask, and just make sure you look at what form they needed. And then I just wanted to show all three so we were all familiar with the three types of forms and how they were related. And that will conclude our session.